In the vast landscape of science, there are few voices that resonate as powerfully as those of Stephen Hawking and Brian Cox. One reshaped our understanding of black holes, cosmology, and the origins of the universe, challenging the very boundaries of human knowledge. The other brought physics and astronomy into living rooms across the globe, transforming complex ideas into poetic visions of the cosmos. Both men share an unshakable curiosity about the universe, but their approaches could not be more different. Stephen Hawking, the theoretical giant, spent decades unraveling the mysteries of space-time, famously declaring, "However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at." Brian Cox, the modern science storyteller, invites us to look up at the night sky and feel that sense of wonder that reminds us, as he once said, "We are part of the universe. We are in the universe, and perhaps more important than both of those facts, the universe is in us." In this video, we will explore their worlds, not as rivals, but as two brilliant minds offering different windows into the same cosmic reality. From the mathematics of quantum physics to the poetic beauty of galaxies, from the equations that predict the death of a star to the gentle metaphors that inspire a new generation of scientists, we will dive deep into how these two extraordinary voices shaped our understanding of existence itself. So fasten your seatbelt, because in the next few minutes, the universe is about to feel both infinite and deeply personal. Stephen Hawking's name has become almost synonymous with cosmology and theoretical physics. His work on black holes, singularity theorems, and Hawking radiation didn't just redefine science. It changed the way humanity thinks about the birth and fate of the universe. In the early 1970s, alongside Roger Penrose, Hawking proved that Einstein's general relativity predicted a point of infinite density at the heart of every black hole, a singularity. But his most revolutionary contribution came in 1974, when he demonstrated that black holes are not entirely black. They emit energy, now known as Hawking radiation, meaning that they can eventually evaporate and disappear. This was a shock to the scientific world, bridging the gap between quantum mechanics and general relativity in a way that few had imagined possible. Hawking's brilliance lay not only in his equations, but in his ability to take the incomprehensible and make it part of public conversation. Books like A Brief History of Time brought cosmology into the mainstream, selling millions of copies and inspiring people who had never before cared about physics. As he once said, "My goal is simple. It is complete understanding of the universe, why it is as it is, and why it exists at all." Yet Hawking's legacy is more than academic achievement. Confined to a wheelchair, speaking through a computer-generated voice, he became a symbol of human resilience. He showed the world that even when the body is limited, the mind can roam freely among galaxies and quasars. His life story, from his diagnosis with ALS to becoming the Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at Cambridge, stands as proof that determination can outshine even the darkest cosmic void. Stephen Hawking didn't just explain the universe. He made it feel urgent, relevant, and deeply connected to our own existence. If Stephen Hawking was the theoretical architect of the cosmos, Brian Cox is its modern-day storyteller. Armed with a background in particle physics and a deep love for the night sky, Cox has mastered the rare art of turning equations into emotions and data into awe. Before his life as a physicist, Cox was literally playing to stadium crowds, as a keyboard player in the rock band D-Ream. But it was in the laboratories of CERN and on the sweeping landscapes of BBC documentaries that he found his true stage. Series like Wonders of the Universe and The Planets didn't just explain science, they made you feel it, with sweeping cinematography and poetic reflections that seemed to place the viewer right there, on the edge of the known universe. Cox's approach to science communication is immersive. He often stands in breathtaking locations, deserts, glaciers, mountain peaks, and draws direct connections between those landscapes and the forces that shaped them billions of years ago. He believes, as he once said, "We are the way for the cosmos to know itself." It's a philosophy that bridges physics with a kind of quiet spirituality, one that reminds us that we are not separate from the stars, but made of the very same stardust. His academic work, though often overshadowed by his television presence, is no less significant. At the University of Manchester, Cox has contributed to research in high-energy particle physics, studying the conditions that existed microseconds after the Big Bang. These are not just thought experiments. They are glimpses into the universe's first heartbeat. Yet it's his ability to connect those microscopic beginnings to the grandeur of galaxies that sets him apart. Cox doesn't just want you to understand the universe. He wants you to fall in love with it. And in doing so, he has inspired millions to look up at the night sky with the same wonder that first drew him to science as a child. At first glance, Stephen Hawking and Brian Cox might seem like opposite ends of the scientific spectrum. One, a wheelchair-bound theorist deciphering the deepest equations of spacetime. The other, a globe-trotting communicator bringing cosmology to life with sweeping visuals and lyrical narration. Yet beneath these surface differences lies a shared mission: to make the universe not only understandable, but unforgettable. Hawking's work reshaped physics at its most fundamental level. He took the cold, intricate mathematics of quantum mechanics and general relativity and used them to reveal truths about black holes, the Big Bang, and the fate of time itself. His focus was on the why the universe exists, why the laws of nature take the form they do, and why our understanding of them matters for humanity's place in the cosmos. Brian Cox, on the other hand, thrives in the realm of the how those laws manifest in the stars we see, the planets we orbit, and the atoms in our bodies. Where Hawking might give you an equation describing Hawking radiation, Cox would take you to a frozen mountaintop and let the silence speak, connecting the laws of thermodynamics to the slow death of a distant sun. Together, they form a kind of cosmic duet. Hawking provided the blueprint for the universe, a precise, mathematical understanding its birth, evolution, and ultimate fate. Cox provides the narrative, turning that blueprint into a story you can feel, remember, and share. One builds the map, the other takes you on the journey. Their differences highlight the beauty of science itself. It is both a rigorous pursuit of truth and a deeply human act of storytelling. In Hawking's equations and Cox's metaphors, we find two complementary ways of seeing the same reality, one through the lens of logic, the other through the lens of wonder. And perhaps that is the real lesson of these two great minds, that understanding the universe is not just about knowing how it works, it's about feeling that it matters. For all their scientific brilliance, what truly sets Stephen Hawking and Brian Cox apart is their ability to remind us that the universe is not some cold, distant expanse. It is our home. Hawking, despite a body ravaged by ALS, lived as if his mind had no boundaries. He reminded us that resilience can be as infinite as the cosmos itself. Every lecture, every book, every public appearance carried the silent but unmistakable message: human potential is not defined by physical limits. His very existence became a metaphor, proof that even when the odds are impossible, the human spirit can still orbit the farthest edges of possibility. Brian Cox brings that same message, but wrapped in a different kind of warmth. His work on television and in classrooms is infused with optimism, a belief that science is not just a subject to be studied, but a language to be lived. When he stands beneath a sky filled with stars and tells us that the atoms of our bodies were forged in the hearts of ancient stars, he is not just reciting a fact. He is reminding us that we belong to something vast and beautiful. Together, they humanize the cosmos. Hawking challenges our intellect, forcing us to wrestle with the paradoxes of time and space. Cox engages our hearts, making us feel the wonder of galaxies, nebulae, and the delicate balance of physics that allows life to exist at all. It is in this blend, the logic of Hawking and the lyricism of Cox, that science transcends textbooks and becomes part of the human story. And in that story, we are not mere observers, we are participants. In the end, Stephen Hawking and Brian Cox are not just scientists, they are storytellers of the universe. One built bridges between quantum mechanics and cosmology, proving that black holes can vanish into nothingness, yet leave behind questions that may last forever. The other turned the language of physics into poetry, guiding us through nebulae, galaxies, and the birth of stars, as if they were chapters in a shared human diary. Through their work, we are reminded of a truth as old as starlight. Knowledge is not the opposite of wonder. It is its greatest companion. Hawking once warned us to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Cox continues that invitation, telling us that the universe is not out there, separate from us, but here, within every particle of our being. Perhaps that is the greatest legacy of both men, to teach us that understanding the cosmos is not about reducing its magic, but about deepening it. That every equation is a story, and every story is a reminder that we are part of something far bigger than ourselves. So, as this journey ends, I leave you with a question, the same one that science itself keeps asking. If the universe is infinite, how far are you willing to go to understand it?